time. And I'm running out of things to say. So let me repeat myself. Please sign up for a slot. Because there's only one talk scheduled for today, there'll be a surprise for the second half. But I'm Raphael Finkel, and I want to tell you in depth about a project I've been working on, so you can see a lot of behind the scenes how things work. But I want to show you in front of the scenes first. So I'm going to, this is the attendance keeping thing. I'm going to cancel that. And this is just my notes of things that I want to talk about. This is actually what I'll be showing you. So there is a project called Kratylos. And the purpose of this project is to allow researchers who are studying natural languages that are in danger to upload their information about those languages that they have achieved during field work so that they can do linguistic studies of that information and so that others can also do that. That's the point of the project. And it's sponsored by the National Science Foundation. Most of this work is done in conjunction with Daniel Kaufman. In fact, there's an about page here I should go to. So this tells you what it is. This is publicly available. There's the version I'm showing you here happens to be our development version, which is on our machines here. But out in the cloud, we've got a production version as well. And one can get accounts there, one can upload data to it, and then anyone can see those data. If you want, you can get a login, and then you can do a bit more. You can upload your own data, and so on. So it's a pretty complicated piece of software that we've been working on for 4 or so years. I want to show you, I'm going to walk through a bit of this, and I'll show you how it works behind the scenes. So here's the projects page. You see I got there by clicking on that. Notice the beautiful buttons here. There's a lot of thought that's going into the user interface, and I'll be showing you how some of that works. But here, my notes say that I want to filter it by walking. Here I've done that already. But you can filter what you're seeing. And so here's the projects available. There are lots of them. But if I filter it by, for example, Wahi, which is a language from, well, if you don't know where it's from, you can always find out. If you go to the details page, then it will show you something about it. In particular, here's where Wahi is. It's Tajikistan. It's a Pamir language, a language of, it's an Eastern Iranic language of the Pamir Mountains, related, of course, to Shugani and Roshani. All right, clearly, and there's even a map of where it is. And I might be able to show you how we get that map and all that, but that's actually not part of what I was going to show you. So let me go back to where I was here. And once I've searched for Wahi, I want to select a rich man, and let's see if I can find that here. Here's a rich man. It's one of the collections. Within the languages, there are collections. And in a collection, I can either search it, I just showed you some details. I can select it for search, or I can just read my way through it. So I've selected read here. And this is now in a different pane. This is actually in the query pane. But I can read my way through this. It's a rich man, glossed by Kevin's son, Daniel Barry. Not the famous Daniel Barry, the other one. All right, there was a rich man. The rich man had a lot of wealth. But here is how it is in Wahi. It's Yiboy 2. Ayaboyan, I can't pronounce some of this. This is an international phonetic alphabet. And I can maybe guess what that is. That's a Chavch. Chavch, how you pronounce that. All right. And this is the data that was uploaded by whoever was working on it. So I'm just reading it. Now, as I scroll down, I want you to watch, if you can see it, this thing down there, which is the scroll bar. But I only have 5 of them shown here. But if I get below 5, I wait long enough. Yes, it gave me more. It's like Facebook. It gives you more and more. Depending on how fast the back end is, it might load it even before you need to see it. Here, we were able to get there before we asked for it. I mean, before we asked for it, it we didn't see it until a few seconds later. There it is. All right, so you can scroll down through it as you can on Facebook. And of course, there's a lot of fanciness behind the scenes that makes that work. That's, well, I'll call that read ahead. Now, I want to search for a particular word. So I'm going to search for Delot. So going back up here, my query is going to be for the word Delot. And I will search for that in this collection. I'm a linguist and I want to know how this word is used. And here it is. The word Delot, which means apparently wealth, its morphological form is Delot. And its citation form, that is its dictionary form, is Delot. That's not very helpful. Here's another one. He spent a lot of wealth and married his daughter to the merchant. That's very wealth, much expense, due, past, definite, third person, singular, merchant. All right, that's the order in which these things are. This is called a glossed text, an interlinear glossed text. I didn't upload it. I didn't even generate it. It was it's taken actually from a book apparently. But so you can search for that. You can do much more complicated searches. That was just searching for a string. You can also search for a Perl pattern. Or I'm not going to show you multi-tier search. It's a really complicated thing. And there's also a Boolean search. Search for this and that, this or not that. So there are all sorts of searches one can do. I want to now, while we're there, I want to show the keyboard. Yeah. Let's say I want to search for something, but my keyboard doesn't have all the special characters I might need in the International Phonetic Alphabet. If you click on this keyboard thing, then down here suddenly, let's get rid of this, you've got a keyboard for all those characters that otherwise you would not have. So it doesn't show the usual characters, you've got those anyway. But looking through this particular collection, the program finds all of the characters that are unlikely that you have, the non-ASCII ones, and it gives you a keyboard here. So if I wanted to type in Delot myself, I could have done it by just saying clear D, funny E, W, L, A, T. And I just clicked on this funny E to get that. It's pronounced And now, if I do a search on that, hopefully it gives me the same thing as before. There it is, yes. It just came in and it's the same thing. So, and I can look for Gach. Whoever searched for Gach is, well, the easiest way to search for Gach is to click on it and to say query this value. That way you don't have to type these things in. So it's busy searching for it, and there it is, Gach, which means very, very, very. Apparently Gach always means very. But I could have typed it in by using the keyboard. Play an audio clip, but that's not quite right. Hide the citation tier is the next thing I want to do. One of these tiers, each line is called a tier. That's what the linguists call it. So this is the text tier, the morphological tier, the citation form tier. I'm not interested in that tier. So I can click on this and say hide it. And now it's not there in any of these. So I can restrict my view to the things that are interesting to me. In fact, by default, I was not seeing some tiers. I will show all the tiers. You'll see that there's a bunch that I'm not really interested in, but there they are. For example, the morphological language is WIBBLE, which stands for Wahi. This is an adverb. This is a pronoun. That's the part of speech tier. So there are some tiers here that I'm not generally interested in, and I can go to the default visibility and get rid of the ones I'm not interested in. So this is the default situation.
So there's a C with this little thing.
Like this one, it's a J with a thing. Bosom.
The
first one, yeah. Most likely it's chat.
Yeah, okay, but you're going to keep on have this symbol.
Yes, I bet it did. The way you get that, that's clear.
Oh, okay.
And I'll type a C followed by a, whatever you call that, AT.
Oh, okay.
It's a combining symbol. Yeah. Hey.
When you're doing searches like this, in the IPA, are there sometimes multiple ways to spell the same
Yes,
And
that's,
so does it, can you search for all different variants of that?
yeah, you can do it either with a pattern with an or. It does raise an interesting Unicode problem.
Right.
For example, the word mañana, Spanish, the third letter is an N with a tilde. Is that a single character or is that an N followed by a tilde?
Yeah.
Both ways work. The browser knows to represent them with the same appearance, but which should you use? And the answer is use whichever you like. My program converts it all to the standard decomposition form, and all the data is stored in standard decomposition form. And in fact, I can have ignore accent marks, and I can search for cot instead of chot. And if I'm ignoring accent marks, I should find it anyway, because that's an accent mark. So let's see. Yes, here it is. It found chot and chator. Chator is actually formed of chot and
So it just ignores all the Unicode.
Yeah, when I say ignore accent marks, it ignores all of the Unicode marks, they're called.
Right.
Right. And so, even if you don't want to use my fancy keyboard, you can find these things. But internally, everything is converted to the normal decomposition form. Any other questions? Okay, so what do I want to show you next? I want to go back to the projects page, and this time I want to search for Aramaic 2. Aramaic is a language which is still spoken. It was very widespread around 2,000 years ago, but it's still spoken in a few villages in Syria. So here's Aramaic, and I think it's this one that has Aramaic 2, and I could go to read it, but I'm going to just select it. Once you select something, you can now, after you've finished, you can select more than one project, but after I've selected it, I'm going to search within that project. And I've got actually two, in that collection, Aramaic 2, actually both TextGrid and EAF. These are different upload formats. People use different software out in the field. There are about 7 standard kinds of software. We can deal with any of them. And we also can deal with a specialty representations that then I have to myself write a converter for. But so inside of both of those, I'm going to simultaneously search for the word way, because I know it's going to find something. And here we are. There, in the TextGrid upload that Daniel Kaufman uploaded in December of 2015, we have because in the wedding of the groom's friends, wedding of Bach Bebe, you see all the churches busy with wedding ceremonies. And down in the EAF, he actually also has sound there. Now, I don't know if the sound is going to work, but let's try it. Let's see if we can hear Chalula the Bach Bebe. I heard it here, but I guess the HDMI doesn't collect the sound, or I didn't turn it on for that. But anyway, you can actually listen to that. You can hear how people say in that language, because the person who collected it also has a sound stream. And this particular format, the EAF format, allows you to combine things together. Oh, that actually showed me more about this particular thing. It looks like northern Syria, southern Turkey is where that particular language is spoken. Let's go back to where I was, though. So you can listen to these various sound clips. Now, there are 2 different sets of results. There's the ones from TextGrid and the ones from EAF. What if I want to see them side by side? Well, I can do that. Now they're side by side. And sometimes it's useful to have a dictionary on one side and texts on the other side, so you can search simultaneously in both. In this particular case, they are almost the same data, but in 2 different formats. Let me show you another fancy thing here. I can export this particular entry into LaTeX, or LaTeX, or LaTeX. Choose one, and it generates it and it puts it into your cut buffer, and you can then embed it into a paper. And if you're not using LaTeX, there are various different, there's 2 standard, what are they called in LaTeX? Packages available for linguists, XPEX and LingWex, and we have both of those. But if all you want is PNG, that also works. And here it is, it's a PNG file. That didn't come out perfectly there, I don't know why, but it does, I can get it coming out PNG as well. Maybe it's because I got, the pane is so narrow at the moment that it didn't show up well. No, let's get rid of that. The other thing I wanted to show you about that, move the pane to the left. Export to PNG, okay. So that's a demo of what you can do. Now, there are other things you can do. I haven't shown you the whole world. I haven't shown you the upload page, for example. And I haven't shown you the maintainers pages. But now I want to show you some of the code, because that's where the interesting stuff is. Now that you know that it works, the question is, how does it work? So I'm going to use this window for that. This particular machine, all of my machines, all my computers are named after cheeses. This particular laptop is called Roquefort, and I, this morning, uploaded a copy onto Roquefort of all of my source, so in case the network wasn't working, I can still show you. So, let's go to the right directory. All right. And the program that generates this page, let me make it one pane again, is called display.cgi. You can see, if you can read this very small thing up here, it says display.cgi. CGI is a convention. It stands for Common Gateway Interface, I believe. It's a convention where a web page can be produced, not just a page statically, but it's generated every time you look at it by a program. And it's called the CGI program. And my CGI programs are written in Perl. Of course, Perl. So I wanted to show you the display. Actually, I'm first going to look at the template. How many of you have used PHP? All right. The idea that I'm using in Perl is like the PHP idea. In PHP, you make a picture of the HTML, not a picture, you make a file, which is the HTML that you want your output to look like, with various escapes saying this has to be filled in by a program. Well, there is a Perl module called template, which does the same thing. And I want to show you the template that I'm using to generate this page. Here it is. Now, I'm going to widen this screen a bit. All right. So it looks like HTML. It's got a doc type, and an HTML language is English. Here's the head, and it's got a bunch of stuff. All right? So, but every so often, I've got a very strange sort of tag called temple if. That says if the Perl program has specified the Boolean host var, then include this. Otherwise, don't. So, otherwise, just say Kratylos. So what does my title here say? My title says Kratylos version C, because host var was actually there. And so it'll say Kratylos hyphen, and then the host version, which is version C, is the particular version I'm looking at. I've got, that's our current development version. There is an A and a B somewhere. The production version is version L. I just built version M. Anyway, so it's got these conditionals. Yeah, question? It also has loops. Here's a loop. And that says, let's move that to the top of the page here. That says loop across all the things that have CSS in the name, and they have a subthing called entry, and show them all. And so that's a way of generating. My Perl program has got to set this up, but then when it invokes this particular template, they all get filled in. And I could actually look at the page in HTML, Control U, of course, and that is at the end of style. Let's see if I can find it here. Here it is. It's right here. That, I can't see it because it's a little bit small. Let's see if I can increase the size of it here. Yeah, this is all of the CSSs that I knew I needed to generate. And it was just done in that little loop. you might ask, what is CSS? Well, it's another one of these TLAs. What you will ask is a TLA. It's a 3-letter acronym. And we have so many of them in computer science. And so CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. And it's a way of describing how to display something, in what color, in what font, whether it's moved over or not. And so this happens to say, in particular, that the text grid aligned phonetic tier, I like it to be in color green with a font weight bold and a font style italic. And how did I know that? I'll show you that later. So here is then a picture of what the web page should look like, minus all the content. And the content is generated dynamically by a program. So it looks a bit like PHP. Now, it's using Bootstrap. How many of you are familiar at all with Bootstrap? I wasn't either until 2 years ago at a Keeping Current seminar. Someone was mentioning, here are my favorite things, and one of them is Bootstrap. And I said, I've got to learn about this. Bootstrap is a set of CSS things and JavaScript things that allow you to make a very nice looking web page. And so this web page here uses Bootstrap. Now, in what way do I use Bootstrap? Well, one of the nice things about Bootstrap is it allows you to automatically account for the various width of your device. What if I'm looking at this web page on a very narrow device, like a smartphone? Well, to imitate that, what I'll do is I'll narrow this down and see what happens. Notice the top line as I do this. It suddenly became a menu. That's automatic. Bootstrap knows how to do that. It also reorganized this. Various things are now different. I'm not going to show you all that I'm using Bootstrap for, but let me just assure you that a lot of this is based on what Bootstrap can do for me. Go back to where I was. So, how do I get to Bootstrap? Well, at the very top of this page, unfortunately, the mouse is on a sliding table, so it's kind of hard to get the mouse to do what I want here. All right. There's a bunch of style sheets, and one of those style sheets is the Bootstrap style sheet, plus a bunch of other stuff. I'm not going to show you any of that, but I am using Bootstrap. And BTMSM, I will look for that. All right. Under selected collections, I've got a span class button, button small, button outline info. These are Bootstrap things. It knows how to make buttons look nice. And so here is selected collections. I'll actually show it. There it is. This button, right there. How do I generate that beautiful button? By asking Bootstrap, I'd like a button. And I'd like it to be small, and I like it to be of the outline form, and I like it to be the color that you use for information. As opposed, and that's the same one I used here. This is a different, it's related button, and that's all built by Bootstrap. So I highly recommend Bootstrap to you. All right, now, behind the scenes, there's a database. What do you expect I actually put in the database? If you think all the content of a collection, no, that's not in the database. But all the meta information is. So let me show you that. And to do that, I'm going to get out of the editor and run MySQL. And use the database Kratylos, which for some reason does not require a semicolon. Everything else does. And I will describe projects. This is one of the 10 or so relations that I use, and every project has an entry like this. So it's got a project identifier, which is an internal unique identifier. The language, which is just a varchar like Wahi. The language code. We've got a table for language codes that we preloaded manually. so we can distinguish languages, and for each language code we have another table that tells us more about what that language is, including where it is geographically, so we can show you the map using Google Maps, using the particular API that Google Maps uses. And if you're wondering what an API is, it's yet another TLA. And it stands for Application Programming Interface or something like that. Anyway, so we also have, this is the version, which is under the language, the next level. For example, A Rich Man was a version. Who uploaded it? And we actually store this by people's email. What data type is it? Is it EAF? Is it flex text? What is it? Provenance, which is the person who uploads it can say, I got this information from the following book. Creator is also something the uploader can say, saying the author of the book was Pokorny. There might be a website associated with it. Public is merely a tiny int of 1, meaning it's a Boolean. Each project is either public or private. If it's private, then people who are not logged in can't see it. People who are logged in can only see it if they are marked specifically as the owner or a collaborator of that project. We have a few projects where the data are sensitive, and I won't even tell you why it's that sensitive. Anyway, not everything is public. And then some timestamps. How about that Aramaic 2? Well, I just said, select all the fields from projects where the version happens to be Aramaic 2, and you'll receive the PID. It happens to be project 237. It's called Aramaic. The language code is, not surprisingly, Aramaic. The version is Aramaic 2. I own it. It's got actually 2 data types, because I had 2 different sub-collections. And it comes from Daniel Kaufman, and he's the creator, and it is public, and various dates. So that's the metadata for each project is stored then in this SQL database. And how do I ask, what are all of the tables? It's select star from tabs? No. Show tables, thank you. I don't really know SQL. All right, those are the tables. So I said about 10. And the one I was just showing you was the projects table. We also remember things about users and so on. All right. Now, how the project's data table gets loaded. So I want to go back then to the projects pane. And when I go to the projects pane, it's loading up this table. Now, how did that happen? There's a lot of work behind the scenes that made that work. So, in order to show you that, I have to go through all these lines. First, let's get out of MySQL. And I want to edit project.temple. This is the project pane, which is run by project.cgi, also uses these template files, and it's got its own template file. And so where it's this list of languages is there, and I want to search for project.init. No. Search for project.init. All right. At the bottom of my page, this is the bottom here, I've got a script which has got a function. Now, what is this $function thing? Do you recognize that syntax? This is JavaScript, but yes.
JQuery?
This is JQuery. How many of you have ever used JavaScript? How many of those of you have used JQuery? Great. JQuery is a library of things available in JavaScript, which allows you to do a lot of things easier than by using the raw JavaScript. And this is a way of having a function which is called during initialization. And it initializes something called auth, and it also initializes the project, and it gives it a single parameter, which is fed to it by the template, the project identifier. And so what is project init? Where is that? Well, of course, it's in a different file. It's in a JavaScript file, which is a fairly complicated JavaScript file, which we have built over time. This particular file, as you can see, is over 3,000 lines long of JavaScript. This is ours. And I want to go there to project init, which is what I just called, which is very close to where I am here. You can just go up a little bit and find it. Project is a variable in JavaScript, and it contains, that variable contains a field called init, which is a function which takes the project identifier. And so when we first start running that page calls this routine. And this routine, among other things, calls init project DataTable, which is going to fill that thing out, that table. And that's down here, so it's very close by. I'm going to move that to the top of the screen. So the project DataTable is set up that way. Now, those of you who can read JQuery, what does that say? Yeah, person.
Is that from the HTML page with ID TBL project?
That's right. There would better be something called TBL proj in the web page as an identifier. So let's go and look for it. Let's see where I am here. I think I can find it by just doing this. Oh, that didn't work. How about this? Yes, there it is. It's a table with an ID, table proj. And that's where that table is going to be put. Now this table has got very little in it. It only has the head. It's got all the headings, language, language code maintainer, and so on, which you can see here, language, maintainer, data type, etc. But it doesn't have any content. Where did the content come from? It gets filled in dynamically by that JavaScript. So let's go back to the JavaScript and see how the JavaScript works. It calls .datatable. Well, DataTable is another package that we have brought in. It's third-party software. And it's a complicated bit of JavaScript. Oh, it is now 4:30, so I'll tell you what the surprise is. The surprise is, I'm going to keep talking. There might be, if I run out of things to say, I've got another surprise lined up, just in case. So how does the data table work? Well, it takes a bunch of parameters. And this is in standard JavaScript notation. JavaScript object notation. That's an FLA, a four-letter acronym. JavaScript object notation, JSON. So when you hear people talk about JSON, they're talking about this notation for data. And this notation says, I've got a field called save state, which will be true, and defer render, which is true. These are a bunch of things you just have to say if you want to build a data table. But interestingly enough, there's one called Ajax. Okay, Ajax is another four-letter acronym. What does it stand for? I don't remember.
Asynchronous JavaScript and XML.
Very good. Asynchronous, JavaScript, and XML. Although it has nothing to do with XML. The idea behind Ajax is it's a way for a web page to get back in touch with the server and send it a query, and then the result of the query, the web page can, or the JavaScript, can then do what it wants with, plug things into the page. Well, that's just what I want. I want to go to the back end, find out everything I can about this particular, about all the projects, and then populate the table. And so, where do I go? I go to some URL. And where's the URL? It's Krat API CGI with a parameter, endpoint. Well, Krat API CGI is a program of ours. It's another CGI program. It is when you invoke it, it runs a program. And it's written in Perl, of course. And here it is. It even says, I'm running Perl. Now, there was an endpoint. If you go back to where I was here, there was a query, and the query had an endpoint parameter. Control get my project's data table. Well, search for that here. I've already got the search term ready for me here.